With an end to Florida's travel restrictions, capacity limits, quarantine requirements, and a decrease in COVID-19 case numbers, the return of Disney World fireworks, water park updates, normality seems within touching distance for Orlando vacationers, assuming you don't have the misfortune of being in the UK. Hi, I'm the Frugal Brit, and for this video I'm going to provide a brief update on what's been going on in Disney World and Orlando. Before we get into it, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out on future news, reviews and other Orlando vacation content. So many of you will likely be aware that Walt Disney World's reopening in July did not include its 2 water parks, and until very recently there'd been no updates on this. However, earlier in the month, Disney did confirm its plans to open either Blizzard Beach or Typhoon Lagoon on March 7th, 2021. Unfortunately, they did not specify which water park would return and noted that the reopening would be subject to government approval. Given that prior to the pandemic, Disney would typically operate on reduced schedules during the fall and winter months, this shouldn't be too surprising given the significantly reduced schedules during this period. Having said that, Disney World's main competitors here being Universal's Volcano Bay and SeaWorld's Aquatica did welcome guests back in the summer, which seems to have gone pretty well, but I think it's fair to say Disney has had a lot more on its plate and Disney's water parks are far less significant to the appeal of a Disney World vacation by comparison. Overall, this news is a little disappointing with the confirmation that we definitely won't see a water park this year, but personally I am pleased that at least we know it's on the horizon. The most highly anticipated hotel coming to Disney World is the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser Resort, opening behind Galaxy's Edge in Hollywood Studios. There'd been speculation about whether it might be cancelled during the pandemic, but Disney's CFO Christine McCarthy confirmed at a recent conference that this particular project is going to be prioritised going forward. This resort, which you can bet will be extremely expensive, is said to put guests in the centre of an interactive adventure that they control, which will begin when guests arrive at the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser terminal and check in for their 2-night experience. Guests will then enter a launch pod for the transport into space. Through windows, guests will see themselves leave Florida behind, jumping into hyperspace, drawing closer to the Halcyon, which is the star cruiser they'll call home for the next 2 nights. One of the activities will include wielding a lightsaber and facing off against a training remote. As of now, Disney has only confirmed a release date of sometime in 2021, although given the ongoing madness, delays should not be unexpected. Some great news for Disney World, as over in Epcot, Disney carried out a multi-hour fireworks test following the park's closure on September 23rd. This wasn't a full Epcot Forever or Illumination show, but instead just a test likely for the ongoing development of its upcoming nighttime spectacular known as Harmonious. This show was originally scheduled to debut sometime in 2020. Disney says it will be an elaborate dreamscape of Disney music and imagery reinterpreted by diverse cultural musicians and artists from around the world. Obviously, Disney has been reluctant to bring back fireworks to Disney World during the pandemic due to physical distancing risks. However, with Epcot being the most spacious of the Disney World parks, it seems the World Showcase Lagoon will be the safest place for their return. But it's expected that much testing will be required before fireworks can be brought back. Given how incredibly expensive Disney's fireworks shows are, it also seems likely that Disney will hold off on bringing them back until absolutely necessary, either to help increase capacity or when capacity returns to normal, with many predicting a return around spring 2021. So there's been a lot of movement with park hours since my last update, too many to mention really, but just to give a brief recap, it all started when Disney had dramatically reduced its hours up until Halloween, which was an extremely unpopular decision for Disney fans, but a few changes following this has led to extensions to park hours through to December 12th for the Magic Kingdom and Epcot. Separate to this, there's also been extensions for all 4 parks over Disney World's busiest weekends in October, most notably a 2-hour extension for Epcot in the evening, which will close at 9 PM on certain days. So earlier in the month, Universal Orlando ran its Halloween season experience testing with 2 daytime haunted houses at Universal Studios Florida, which will later feature on a daily basis from October 3rd. The best part of the announcement is that all guests will be able to experience Universal Monsters, The Bride of Frankenstein Lives, and Revenge of the Tooth Fairy as much as they want to on those select dates, and they can also do it in costume. Universal will be offering virtual line access through its official app. And for those under 13, Universal is offering a trick or treat at Universal's Islands of Adventure during those dates. In other news, Universal has shed some light on the worst kept secret in Orlando by finally confirming that they are indeed building a roller coaster at Islands of Adventure, and it will be officially known as the Jurassic World Velocicoaster, opening in 2021. They haven't given us much else in terms of details besides saying that you will feel the rush of the hunt as you race through the jungle alongside raptors. So Florida's case numbers have continued to decrease very slightly throughout September for new infections and deaths, but things have plateaued at a higher rate than many were hoping for. But crucially for me, there's been a very steady decrease in the number of hospitalizations, which for me is a better indicator. These positive indicators have been recognised outside of Florida, as it is now starting to be removed from quarantine orders and travel ban lists by other states. Florida's progress with COVID-19 has no doubt led to Governor DeSantis having issued an executive order moving the state into Phase 3 of its reopening plan. This order prohibits communities in the state from closing businesses due to COVID-19 and allows bars and restaurants across the state to operate at full capacity. Not only that, local governments are prohibited from forcing businesses to operate at below 50%, and they're also prevented from collecting fines from people who violate mandatory mask and other COVID-related orders. Pretty bold stuff. This is obviously great news for business owners and their employees, but it has raised some eyebrows with the timing. I appreciate that Florida has a much bigger population than many people assume. For example, it has a third of the UK's entire population. But the timing of this order has caused some concern given Florida's infection rate. There are also some arguing that these measures could be counterproductive, as tourists may be less inclined to book a trip to Florida if they don't feel safe. I'm going to sit squarely on the fence here. I'm obviously really encouraged by things getting closer to normal. I've heard some really compelling arguments being made about how we need to find a sustainable way to live with the virus, but at the same time, I'm nervous about how this has the potential to reverse all the progress that's been made since August. One question that I do get asked quite a lot is when the travel ban is likely to be lifted for the UK. I suspect that if it was up to Governor DeSantis, this would be done ASAP, I think. But politically, there's just too much going on at the moment for this to occur anytime soon. Dr. Fauci did say in an interview with The Telegraph that he thinks the ban could last until a vaccine is developed, which is not great. But he also said, and this is a direct quote, he said that his money is on a vaccine being approved in November, and later acknowledged that it could actually even be sooner. I think at this point, my money would be on March 2021 for the travel ban to be lifted for the UK. But one issue is, given that the theme parks are starting to get busier and busier each weekend, I am a little bit worried whether or not Brits are actually going to be welcome back in Florida. In all seriousness though, it has been reported that international tourists make up roughly 18 to 20% of Disney and Universal's guests, and I strongly suspect that Brits represent a huge proportion of this, so there's massive financial incentive to get this sorted out as soon as possible. In particular, I know off-site restaurants and hotels will be absolutely desperate for the Brits to come back. This all depends though on the UK's own progress in dealing with the virus. Since my last update, infections have skyrocketed and hospitalisations have increased at an alarming rate. In my last video, I did sort of predict a rise, but I also dismissed the idea of the UK's second wave being worse than the first. Whilst I'm still leaning towards this prediction, it is entirely possible that if infections increase exponentially over winter, which is often the case with respiratory diseases, we could see numbers comparable to the previous wave, if not higher. However, earlier in the month, many of the dire predictions were based on the idea of hospital admissions doubling every week. Whilst that did occur the second week of September, it does seem that the daily hospital admissions have not risen at a rate that many had feared. For example, this article from the Daily Mail reported that there could be 1,000 people going into hospital per day by October. However, as you can see, at the end of the month, daily admissions are a quarter of that. Still not good, but not 1,000 a day. But as always with coronavirus, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. That's all from me for this week. Thank you for watching. If you're headed to Orlando anytime soon, be sure to check out my hotel and theme park reviews, my restaurant ranking guides, and lastly, if you're interested in future Orlando vacation content, don't forget to subscribe.